In the Andes Mountains, near Bogota, Colombia, an ancient rock shelter contains pictograms and mysterious markings in the stone that have never been formally documented. One image, in particular, resembles megafauna, suggesting a prehistoric origin rather than later symbolic art. Elsewhere, chiseled carvings form triangles, squares, and circles set within parallel lines. Other paintings imply structure, orientation, spacing, and relationships that raise a more provocative question. Could this be more than decoration, possibly even a prehistoric map? This trilogy documents the site, the evidence, and the questions it leaves unanswered. Hi, this is Jay with Explore Colombia. Today, we're close to Bogota, Colombia, and we're going to be taking a closer look at a pictogram hidden inside this rock shelter. Now, this site is not easy to access, but its inaccessibility has conserved it over time. As we move along the wall inside here, we're going to come across a pictogram. Now, I'm not going to touch this. I'm not even going to get close enough to breathe on this. This is ancient rock art. As you can see, this is very, very old. This is a mixture of red ochre and black carbon. Now, if I can get my magnifying glass in here, we can have a closer look at this. We can see at the front, it has an elongated snout, which leads back to a bulbous body, tapering off to a tail. And as you can see, it's faded away over the millennia. This rock shelter is located at an altitude of 2,800 meters. These mountains would have sat as islands in the ancient glacial Lake Humboldt, which started to disappear round about 12,400 years ago with the onset of the Younger Dryas period. Now, this has only ever been seen by two archaeologists, and both of them have identified it as some kind of abstract megafauna. Now you can see it is abstract, but you can clearly see it's got legs at the back, legs at the front, a bulbous front part, an elongated snout at the front, which is why this has been identified as a mastodon. Which would date this rock art back to the end of the late Pleistocene period, coming into the Younger Dryas and coming into the Holocene period, which dates it at least 12,000 years old, which ties in well with the nearby sites in El Abra, Zipaquirá. In Zipaquirá, which is just a stone's throw away from here, rock shelters and human habitation and rock art has been dated back to 14,000 years. In nearby Tocancipá, butchered mastodon remains have been found that also date back 14,000 years. And further afield in Colombia, in La Lindosa in Guaviare, rock art showing megafauna is believed to date back possibly 20,000 years. This site could give answers to many lingering questions regarding the people that lived here all those thousands of years ago. Hunter-gatherers would have survived by tracking deer and megafauna across the Paramos, and by fishing along the shoreline of the lakes, and by collecting fruit and leaves from the forest. With the arrival of the Herrera people around 7,000 years ago, and later the Muisca people, agriculture became the norm, and people started to live in settled societies and formed larger groups. Now, this site has been seen by 2 international archaeologists, and investigations are ongoing. And as we know, even with the most famous sites like Göbekli Tepe, it can take decades to get international recognition.
We put the pictogram through D-Stretch, an archaeological app that helps bring out the natural contours and natural colours and can reveal faded details. What kind of animal do you think the pictogram shows? Let us know in the comments.
Hi, this is Jay with Explore Colombia. We're going up this mountain to explore some ancient rock shelters.
This rock shelter holds carvings unlike anything documented before in South America.
On these bottom panels, we have petroglyphs. Now, these are not just random symbols. You can see here, these are inside parallel lines. They've been deliberately carved within those lines to stand out. We've got triangular features there, raised features that are 100% man-made. As we move across the bottom panel in this cave, we come to more of these markings. Now, these are perhaps more pronounced. We have the same triangular and square symbols, which are set within these heavy parallel lines. And as we move over, there is another panel on this side with similar indentations and similar carvings. And it actually extends nearly all the way across the cave in a semicircle to this side as well. Now, here we are seeing selective, organized marks. This is not just simple decoration. This is a form of communication. Now, the question is, what do these symbols mean?
Their placement appears to be deliberate, not random. If these symbols belong to an ancient South American culture, that culture is currently unknown. No such parallels have been recorded in rock art databases in Colombia.
Now, they look more than random. There are repeated shapes, repeated symbols, all across these panels in this cave. Now, as we get in close to these, we can see the contour, we can see the chisel marks, we can see parallel lines, we can see triangular and square and circular formations.
This is not erosion. This is definitely man-made. The rarity of this site forces us to ask new questions. Who made these carvings? And more importantly, when were they made? Comparable sites exist elsewhere in the world, but not in South America. In Europe, similar carved symbols have been found in caves in Fontainebleau, France. The comparison that we're making here is purely visual and structural. We are not suggesting any kind of cultural interaction. These rock shelters in Fontainebleau have been dated back to more than 14,000 years. The resemblance lies purely in technique and setting, not origin, although these symbols are strikingly similar. If this site in Colombia is assessed using the same European archaeological paradigms applied at Fontainebleau, the implications would point towards the end of the last ice age.
This site demands that we view those ice age hunter-gatherers differently and see that they did have spatial awareness. They were mapping their environment. They were communicating, albeit with a simple kind of proto-writing. But it means that our estimation of them is way, way below what they really did achieve. This site demands that we look at things differently and think differently about how people lived all those years ago. Hi, this is Jay with Explore Colombia. Today we're close to Cota in Cundinamarca. We're going up this mountain to explore some ancient rock shelters. Now this site is not easy to access, but its inaccessibility has conserved it over time. So here ahead is another rock shelter.
As you can see, the back wall of this shelter has been adorned with white artwork. Across the rock surface, pale lines begin to appear. They are not part of the stone itself. They were painted on top of it. White markings applied rather than formed. What's striking is how these lines interact with the rock. They don't bleed into the natural fractures. Instead, they bend, stop, and continue around them, as if these cracks were deliberately avoided.
As we come down to the bottom as well, we can see again, this is not natural minerals leaching through natural cracks in the rock. This has been deliberately marked and deliberately created. That has been drawn by man.
As we look at the surface more carefully, shapes begin to form. Lines connect, separate, and rejoin. Some areas are more defined, others are left open. This does not feel accidental. These markings begin to resemble something familiar. Not detailed, not precise, but organized. Almost like a simplified way of defining space. In a modern context, we might see this as a simple map.
Now, if this is a map, which I strongly believe it is, then this is unlike anything ever found in South America before, and would show the earliest signs of map making and spatial awareness from the people that lived here all those thousands of years ago. Now, here behind me, you can see a much better view of the map. And I mean, you can see clearly it's been drawn, it's got boundaries marked in white, it's got points of reference. Now, this shows an incredible spatial awareness, an incredible knowledge of their environment, which, according to mainstream archaeology, these hunter-gatherers that would have lived here all those thousands of years ago did not have.
This may not show a representation of places as we would draw a map today, but a way of recording movement, defining boundaries, and showing relationships with their environment. Whatever its purpose, these markings appear intentional.
They seem to suggest a spatial awareness, and although perhaps not an identical map of the surrounding area, it would have definitely shown the most important locations and given the people who were living here all those years ago some sense of where they were.
It would perhaps show hunting ground, lakes and rivers for fishing, and rock shelters where they could safely take refuge.
Now, maps don't always copy the landscape exactly. They simplify it, make it easier to find your way around, which is exactly what this appears to be, a simplified example of the surrounding area. Now, if we go in here and get a bit more detail, we can see that This is not just minerals leaching through the natural rock cracks. As you can see, there's a crack there, and this has been drawn around it. So it shows deliberate human intention. Now, as you can see behind me, here is the map in all of its glory. Now, this is a one-of-a-kind find. Nothing like this has ever been found in South America before. This site demands that we look at things differently and think differently about how people lived all those years ago. This site shows a much higher level of intelligence and understanding than any of these hunter-gatherers are given credit for. This means that they understood their environment, they knew their environment, and they could draw their environment, which, for the time period, is truly incredible. Well, that's me done for the day. I'm going to start heading back down the mountain. Thanks for watching. See you next time.